He's taken on Thanos. He's taken on dinosaurs. He's taken on King Koopa, Bowser himself. But now, Chris Pratt faces his greatest challenge yet, having Samuel L. Jackson as his father. The Garfield movie. Yeah, they were giving these out of the show. It's a squishy. So the Garfield movie is a new CG animated movie based on the Garfield comic strip, which has been around for decades. You know who Garfield is. It stars one Christopher Pratt as everyone's favorite fictional lazy cat. He's living it up at home like we all know Garfield does, when his father, voiced by Sam Jackson, who abandoned him as a kitten, comes back into his life and he's like, you gotta help me out, son, cause I'm in a bit of a jam. And so, bringing along Odie, they all go on an action comedy adventure in a movie that was clearly not meant for my age demographic. Yeah, first and foremost, you need to know this. This is a kid's movie for kids. I don't really see adults or parents being really into this one. I mean, Chris Pratt as Garfield is actually really good casting. It's funny, like when we all heard he was cast, we were all collectively like, oh, really? Chris Pratt is in everything, now he's Garfield? But then, just like with Mario, he ended up being really good casting because we saw the trailer, and for me personally, about the time it got to this point,
say when? Never, John. Bury me in cheese.
I was like, okay, yeah, that is Garfield, straight up. Chris Pratt is great as the voice of Garfield. In fact, he's the best thing in this movie. And this Garfield is the same Garfield we know. He's lazy, he loves to eat, he loves to sleep. He does not want to be on this adventure, especially with his estranged father, who I guess is a new character who was invented for this movie. I guess we've never known Garfield's father before. I don't know, I'm not like an expert in Garfield's history, but at the beginning of the movie, Garfield tells the audience, breaking the fourth wall, he's like, you've never met this character before. So I believe him. Vic is the character's name. He's likable enough, I guess. I mean, he's pretty much Sam Jackson in rated G cat form, or PG. I love Odie though. You can't go wrong with Odie. I've always loved Odie, because Odie is just straight up lovable. He doesn't speak the way Garfield does, which is funny because there are other dogs in this movie who do speak, but that's the way Odie's always been. In other Garfield cartoons, like in Garfield and Friends, is the same way. There have been dogs in that cartoon that speak, but Odie just never does. That's just how it is. But the little noises Odie makes, I've always loved, because they're cute. Odie's cute. John, who's the owner of Garfield and Odie, he's voiced by Nicholas Hoult here, and I wish he had a bigger part. He's not really in the movie a whole lot. I mean, while Garfield is on his adventure with everybody, it'll sometimes cut to John. He's like, where are my cat and dog? But it really happens for no reason. Like, why even show this scene? It does eventually progress, but for the time being, it does feel kind of pointless. There is a villain in this movie. It's a British cat named Jinx. She's the one causing this whole jam that Vic is in. Wasn't a fan of this character in particular, because, you know, she's a kiddie movie villain in a kiddie movie. That's kiddie with D's instead of T's. You get what I'm saying. Although technically she is a kiddie villain with T's. So yeah, there is that. Okay, those were puns, so that does prompt me to do this. But yeah, like I said before, this movie is a kids movie for kids, and I'm gonna break down for you right here the difference between kids movies and family movies. This movie is a kids movie, like Despicable Me, for example. It's not a family movie, like If, or the Peanuts movie. I bring that movie up because, you know, it's based on a comic strip, and the Peanuts movie is a movie I really love. Kids movies are for kids only, and adults and parents won't really be into them, whereas family movies are for the whole family, and everyone watching of all ages will be into it. What separates the two of them is atmosphere and tone, the pacing of the jokes. If a kid-friendly movie decides to have more emotional, dramatic moments instead of just kiddie jokes, that makes it a family movie. Kids movies, on the other hand, just usually go for the kiddie jokes instead. And that's what this movie does. Granted, this movie does have its emotional moments, sure, but they're all just breezed right over. Yeah, this movie's really fast-paced, because, you know, it's for kids, so it's that kid movie kind of fast-paced. Gotta keep the little kids interested in the movie, so the emotional moments don't really last long enough for them to marinate. They just kind of happen, and then they're done. This movie uses cartoon logic when it comes to physics. Like, you know, the scene you saw in the trailer where Garfield's ricocheting all over the place, he's bouncing back and forth between those two trees. Cartoon logic. Which is fine, you know, cartoon logic doesn't bother me. Most animated movies use cartoon logic, because it's goofy and silly and fun to watch. But I'm just saying, in the case of this movie, it is one of the contributing factors to this being a kids movie for kids. I mean, my favorite animated movie of all time is The Iron Giant. That movie does not use cartoon logic. Don't know why that's relevant. I'm just saying, I guess. What I'm saying is, little kids are going to enjoy this movie. It's inevitable. Because little kids don't judge movies, you know? But I'd say if you're in like 8th grade or older, then you probably won't dig this movie. Because you'll be like, this movie's for 5-year-olds. Why am I watching this? That's kind of how I felt watching this movie. I mean, the whole action comedy, Garfield going on an adventure with his father, it didn't really feel like Garfield to me personally. Like, it reminded me of Scoob. You remember that movie Scoob? I don't blame you if you don't. But like, you know how it tried to take Scooby-Doo and make it into a superhero movie, but it failed because that's not what Scooby-Doo is supposed to be? I feel like this movie kind of did the same thing with Garfield. It took Garfield and put him him in an area where, like, that's not what Garfield's supposed to be. Again, I'm not an expert in the history of Garfield or anything. Maybe he's been on adventures like this before and I just don't know about him. But from what I know of Garfield, he's never done anything like this before. So it felt kind of strange. The music in this movie was fine. John Debney did the score. He's done a lot of scores at this point, and the score is totally functional. It works for the movie, sure. I mean, I'm not going to go out of my way to listen to it ever again, just like I'm probably not going to go out of my way to see this movie ever again. But it's not a bad score, you know? It's not like it felt out of place in the movie or anything. You know, it worked. In the end, the Garfield movie disappointed me personally, because I've seen a few episodes of Garfield and Friends, you know, the old cartoon from the 80s. There are episodes of that show that you can watch on YouTube right now, and they're enjoyable enough. I like them. This movie could have been for the whole family, like the Peanuts movie, but it decided to go the kids-only route, and in my opinion, that was just the wrong decision. Again, if you have really little kids, take them to see it, they'll have a good time, or rather have the babysitter take them to see it, while you're off doing something else. This isn't like the worst movie I've ever seen or anything, it's not even close. It works for what it is and what it's trying to do. So I can't give it my worst rating, but I will say if you are in like 8th grade or older, then for the Garfield movie, I will say, wait until you can stream this movie online. Cause this movie was not made for you, I promise. So the Garfield movie, have you seen it? Well, doubtful since it's not out until this coming weekend. So what is your favorite movie based off a comic strip? There have been a few, I think, right? I don't think a whole lot of them are good, but that's gonna be my question. So whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Peace!